Welcome everyone to the fourth Future DiverCities Practice and Knowledge Sharing program of talks is about the different topics we work on with the Future DiverCities project, spanning from the relation between humankind and nature, from the impermanence of the artistic and cultural interventions and practices in urban and rural spaces under transformation, okay? The theme of urban voids, let's say, or spaces that can be resinified by artistic and cultural practices, and other things, okay? So what we are doing with this program of talks is to share the knowledge and then context we are working in the different pilots of the project. And every time we invite three speakers from ideally three pilots of the project that present their practice and that somehow enlarge our knowledge and also give us new horizons and tools also to do the work we are doing with the project. These meetings are recorded in order to be available to everyone after they happened, okay, and they are on the YouTube channel of Future DiverCities. I'm very happy today to introduce the speakers, okay, who are Jakov, Habjan, Michaela, Vieser, and Iacopo Seri. This talk is on urban biodiversity practices, okay, and so we will see different perspective on how biodiversity enters into their artistic cultural research. So I think it will be very stimulating and interesting also because we have very different approaches and visions here around the table, okay? Also, all other participants, just be aware that in the last half an hour of this talk, there will be also space for questions, other interventions, okay? So they present and then we'll have proper space to ask questions and just intervene. So very briefly, I introduce Jakov. Jakov is a Croatian designer and maker from Zagreb, okay? And he works at the intersection of industrial design, craftsmanship, sustainability, and do-it-yourself culture, and also do-it-together culture, I would say, but I don't want to anticipate some things of your presentation. After Jakov, that will share his practice developed in Croatia, I will pass the baton to Michaela, and Michaela is a Berlin-based award-winning author of books, okay? And today she will somehow guide us into the practice of nature writing, okay? So somehow her presentation will be, of course, of her work, but also will try to give us some tools and approaches to practice nature writing. So I think it will be very interesting. I'm very curious also about that. And then last but not least, we have Iacopo Seri. Iacopo Seri is one of the artists that worked in the Future DiverCities project in Italy, in Londa, near Florence, in 2023. But he won't present only that, he will enlarge, let's say, the presentation from his experience in Londa to something wider that somehow relates to how to enter in contact with other beings as humankind, you know. So it will be interesting because somehow we will see some of the thoughts underpinning his approach and his artistic research, okay? So I think I'm also very curious to hear about that. And let's say we start from so very material also interventions to one of Jakov, and then somehow we go to something more immaterial, okay, and in some cases also theoretical. So of course, I hope it will be interesting for all the listeners. And before Jakov intervention, I would ask to our partner Anna Bedenko from Container to just briefly introduce also everyone listening and the audience to what Container does in Future DiverCities and more specifically in Zagreb. Thank you, Anna.
Thank you, Dario, and thank you, Jakov, for participating and taking the time to join the webinar. Yes, so my name is Anna. I work at Container, which is a creation NGO from Zagreb, which engages mostly with curatorial work and art production and educational programs as well. And we are representing the Zagreb pilot. Container never had our own space before, and within the Future Diversities project, we were able to renovate this old industrial hall, in a sense, which belonged to this Viesnik complex, which is a former Croatian newspaper. So it is a really an old printing press, in a sense, and alongside our local coalition, we engaged in this renovation process in 2023. I think we signed the contract in April. It is a privately owned space, so we rent it out. And we finished the works in 2023, September, when the space opened with a bioart exhibition, which is also what Container does within this biodiversity cluster. So as we are located in a very urban area, not really in a natural reserve, our biodiversity, let's say, agenda or values are primarily focused on our curatorial program, so the bioart exhibitions and educational program that accompanies it. And actually, Jakov's workshop, which he belongs to and he is a founder of, alongside some other people, was extensively involved in the renovation process. So they have been our partners from the start, let's say, and they're still very involved in our program activities and exhibitions and all types of events. So yes, I'm really happy that he's here with us, so you can see what they do and what he does, and I hope you enjoy the presentation.
Thank you, Anna. Thanks a lot. And Jakob, try to share your screen. I think it should work. Just let me know in case I can also share, but I guess.
Let's do this. Does it work?
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, we see it. Just try to put it in full screen and we are ready.
Yeah. Just a second, then I'll just do this. Share it like this. So yeah, thank you. It works for you now?
Now it does. Yeah, perfect. Thanks.
Thank you, Anna, for the wonderful introduction, and thanks for having a chance to talk about stuff that I like doing and that I feel it's important. In a way, I'm a designer. I studied design, and until some time ago, I was trying to find what am I focusing on, what do I want to, what is the road I'm going to follow in terms of, is it furniture, is it art, or is it this or that? And then actually, like, what I found really important in the past few years, 4 or 5 years, is the space in which this creation happens. So essentially physical space, but also social in terms of people, as I realized that I cannot really do anything by myself. I mean, I can, but everything is really based on inspiration from other people, asking, helping, doing things together. And so, yeah, this workshop is a very nice example of this. So I started the slide with the picture of the workshop and kind of some just thrown keywords that I find important and which I kind of work on. So yeah, the left are just what is the disciplines that kind of intersect here, and on the right is kind of, let's say, the goals. In a way, it's always joining multiple disciplines, artists and designers and architects and scenographers and light technicians, sound technicians. I don't know. I find these elements that happen in projects very interesting, especially in the collaboration with Container, as we are neighbors, very close together. And yeah, the idea is to just within, for example, a city like Zagreb, which is not huge, it's around a bit less than 1 million people, which I feel has still a very strong creative art scene. The idea, or my kind of wish, is to create this kind of environment that for creative people and just in general anybody who has an idea to fulfill to go from an idea to reality to physicality, that there is a way to make it happen. So maybe I can just I put together some projects here in the slide which are which have connection to it's not necessarily client-based for one person, but it's for a bigger project or for a book fair or for some workshops that we did with some students and so on. So it was always all the projects here, most of them have this kind of community aspect to it, and a lot of building education that was involved in this. These what we see here are book stands that have been designed for a festival in Šibenik. I will get to them later. This is just actually a photo of the workshop. In the workshop, we try to like really implement some kind of events that are not necessarily us making noise and dust and creating things. So this is we're trying to do like some gatherings and parties, and it's a beautiful networking moment, because we are all, it's 4 of us that are sharing the space. We're all in a bubble of being inside and working full time. So it's nice to invite people and create some content and kind of show what we're doing in a way, as best as we can. We had a theater show recently also. It was very fun. A magician came to perform a show that Max, my colleague from the workshop, is his technician in the show. Yeah, the book stands I mentioned. This is kind of a larger scale project, I would say, that's usually done in the workshop. It was a series of these that went to this festival on the south of Croatia. And it's very nice because it was designed kind of in collaboration with the people who are running the book fair, also with the idea of the participants, which is, so it's children's books, basically, mostly. And so the idea is to kind of have the books, they come on these shelves, the red ones. The idea was to have the books low to the floor so kids can go and see them, and the sellers or the vendors that are part of the festival are kind of, there's no, it's on both sides, there's no wall, it's not like a kiosk, it's more like an object on which you can walk around. And yeah, this was done by us in the workshop, but I wanted to put it in as it's like very much defined by, the design is very defined by the context in which it's being used later. Another project which very much involves the people and the community at which it's being done and for which it's being done is this plastic recycling workshop I do often with my colleague Hrvoje. And it's here we were invited to a small island also in the south of Croatia, which resulted in making plastic stools. So we used plastic waste from the island, made a simple shredder machine, and which is, all of this is very open source. We're following some project that started in the Netherlands, and basically together with the residents of the island made a series of stools, and they found it really my biggest like lesson from this is really how much it shifted the perception of circularity of waste for people. Like there was like 3 kilos of plastic in each of these tools. So they brought the plastic from home. They were accumulating it from before. Another project that Max, my colleague from the workshop, and I took part of is Tok Potok, which is a project aimed to revitalize one area and in Zagreb, in the west of the center of Zagreb, which is a bit, it's part of, it's close to an industrial complex. It's a bit, it's next to a creek that goes from the mountain to the river, and it's been neglected for some time. And the idea behind it was to create basically an environment to socialize and to create content and to create workshops and talks. And the first step was these movable trolleys, I would say. And they were made through like an open call, and then from the residents of the neighborhood, and then this got connected to a student-run organization. So we had volunteers, people who wanted to come and learn how to craft and make the boxes. And then all of 12 of them were made. We prepared the material, but basically the people who were interested either in revitalizing this part of the neighborhood, or generally, you know, kind of strengthening the connection with materials and tools and trying to learn something new. It was all done by them. We were really guiding them as much as we could, but it was kind of, we wanted to create this feeling of crafting, that they craft something from the beginning to the end. And after the boxes have been finished, we had some meetings and brainstormed how they can be still, what is the potential arrangements, what is the use of this whole area, which is, yeah, so the creek goes on the right side of this fence, and there's a bit more green area behind. Has a lot of potential. And that would then, we had some fun painting them in some motifs that we brainstormed, which also has some connections to the neighborhood itself. As Anna mentioned, yeah, another project which I find really, really important for like strengthening, yeah, art communities and creative communities in the city is the gallery itself. In this case, Containers Art Space. In the last 2 years, as it exists, even less than 2 years, I feel it became really, really an important part of the city, and for us, it was very exciting that we got invited to be part of the renovation, and also to brainstorm like as much as possible situations that we can see how is this used for concerts, for festivals, for exhibitions, for dance shows, for talks, seminars, whatever. And part of it was designing and making the grid on the ceiling for the fixtures and the light. There was a lot of details to do in the space, as it was really, really a workshop environment as well. So took some time, and a lot of hard work, but in the end it was very worth it. And I'm really, really proud in the effort that all the crew of Container puts in the last like year and a half to keep the space going, and it's really beautiful to see it alive. And these days, currently, we have a festival, so that's the reason why I'm late. We're setting up there, but yeah, I'm just, yeah, very glad that I could be able to be a part of this. And then for them, another colleague from the workshop, and I were asked to design a proposition for like outside area. So the gallery is here where these windows are, and there is a grass field in the front, which is basically inviting for social structures again. So furniture that's there that can be used by anyone in the neighborhood, but also for openings and closings of exhibitions and so on, and festivals. So the proposition was basically a wooden deck next to the facade, and a series of big Lego boxes that have like a click system, like feet that click into the top, so they can be stacked and then connected with straps. All the modules are the same except this hole, and yeah, we had a lot of brainstorming about dimensions and proportions, how to make them most usable, and then it allows for many arrangements, a stage, or the previous shot with like a bar and a DJ setup, or even a night cinema. And the last project I'm showing is one that's yeah, kind of very personal. I've always been a lot on bikes, and it's my way to interact with the city. It's since, I don't know, 15 years, and I made a few cargo bikes. This is the last one, and I just wanted to put it here as I find it's a very important like actor in, first of all, mobility, which is not fossil based. In an urban environment, it's giving so much freedom and so much more potential to go around, do stuff. And I've also given it to cargo bikes. Are very common in Europe. In Croatia, you can, like in Zagreb, you can count them on the fingers of one or two hands. They're really not a lot. It's still very fresh here, and the fact that it's DIY and made by hand and very simple tools makes the story more interesting for people. It kind of makes it, aha, so this is not something science fiction. And really, yeah, I'm super happy. This thing has been going around the city with me for the last 5 years, and it's been in hands of many others. I'm very happy to borrow it for events and festivals, for the syndicate of cyclists and so on. So yeah, this is a brief overview of stuff that has been going on through the workshop and a bit before, and generally how I like to imagine this coexistence of makers, of technicians, of artists, of curators. Like I have a feeling like it's very important to share knowledge and to work together and create something. So that's my 2 cents.
Thanks, Jakov. I have noted down some questions also, and some reflection points to share. But before asking them, I would just wait for everyone to present. And we really try to connect the dots also of your very different experiences and presentations. But this was very, very interesting. Thank you.
Thank you.
And now I would, before passing the baton to Michaela, I would ask to our partner Susa Pop just to say a few words on what Future DiverCities is doing in Berlin, and more specifically, Public Art Lab is doing in Berlin. Okay, so a couple of minutes, nothing very long, Susa, just to introduce all the audience to what we are doing there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dario. Yes, hello, everybody. I'm Susa Pop from Public Art Lab. I'm artistic director and co-founder of Public Art Lab. Co-founder. Would be nice to be co-founder. Rich and funding Public Art Lab. No, we have to work for our funding, and so that means we do several European funded projects like our Future DiverCities. And here we implemented a very interesting program at the Spreepark Art Space, which is a former leisure park from the GDR, an abandoned space for many years, I think for 11 years. So a lot of species settled down there, and now it will be transformed into an art and nature culture park. And yeah, so the first year we were focusing on the park, and the second year on the river and its river communities. And our dear speaker today, Michaela Vieser, she was there from the very beginning, and yes, enriched the whole program with her amazing Science in Place workshops. And shall I continue to introduce Michaela shortly?
Please do so. Yeah.
Yes?
You were very
Okay.
fast.
Yeah. So Michaela, she is a Berlin-based author for nature writing, and she wrote 11 books, and her work explores in-between spaces by combining science, sensory experience, and storytelling to create new narratives. Originally, she studied Japanese studies and lived for a long time in Tokyo and in Japan. I actually was her last visitor there. And yeah, she publishes her work on many interesting and different channels, radio, BBC, platforms. And together with Michaela, we have to mention this as well, we co-curated the Intelligent Landscapes and the Living Library, both projects funded by the German Cultural Foundation. Yes, and today I'm very happy to hear her talk in our platform at Future DiverCities. I'm sure you will all like it very much. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Susa. And yeah, I give the floor to you, Michaela. Try to see if it works, your screen sharing.
Yeah, well, I mean, thank you. It's always wonderful to be introduced by Susa. It's quite hard to live up to that, but we have been having a very long collaboration with Public Art Lab, and it's always really fruitful and fun, and it's a good drive for my own work because yeah, like Jakov was just explaining, his is all about collaboration. My work as a writer is very much alone. You know, I collaborate to gather my information, but when it comes to the writing, it is really the page and I. And so I'm really grateful for Jakov for your projects with the books, you know, showing the books in public, designing stools to sit on and maybe read the books, you know. Yeah, so I guess I'll share my presentation. Oh gosh, here. Is this visible? Is this good or?
Yes, try to put it in present mode, presentation mode. But yeah, we see it.
Then I need to just go out of it again and then do it like this. Back here. Oh, here. Is it better now? I don't know. I can't tell. Yeah. Okay.
Try to click on play. Let's see if it goes maybe. Yeah, perfect now. Thank you.
So I wanted to have a quick writing prompt, but we won't make it a writing prompt because we don't have so much time. We talked about it just now. Just I want you to think about what kind of nature did you encounter coming here? Did you notice something? Did you notice it being nature? Or are you only trying it to remember as nature now that you think about it? This something, you know, because I'm today in the Black Forest. I am completely in nature here. This is just amazing where I am. It's just mountains and trees as far as I can. But I do live in Berlin, and but nature is everywhere around. So this is just for 30 seconds. Just think, maybe you have a little notepad next to you and write it down. And maybe we can talk about it later, where you saw nature today and what it was. I'm a nature writer. So nature writing is a genre within the big genre of writing. And I always try to explain it like this. We are in the times of climate crisis. It's the time of the everything change. Everything around us changes. And so I find it's more important than ever to reconnect to nature. But my sense of what nature is quite far stretched. So I do teach at the UDK, the University of Arts in Berlin. I did like a lecture there on a course on quantum physics and what it means, because quantum physics is also part of the natural world. It's only one we cannot see. And then I look into, what would it be like to live in a world that is only made up of relations and not of manifestations. I gave a course on interconnectedness and especially on viruses, what it means to be inhabited by an entity that is not you. which then also goes like into political spectrum as well. So nature writing really plays with sciences and senses, which means I do a lot of scientific research for my writing. And so my background is also in journalism. To write a good journalistic story, I need to just gather lots and tons of information, and then I can play with it. Then I can start to dance. It's maybe a little bit comparable to a DJ who, the bigger your record collection, the more you can just come up with it is what is there. And so I think, you know, just through practice, I have a quite haptic memory of all the information I gather. Of course, I keep it in diaries and spaces. But science is the one part. The other part that is really important is the senses. And that is something that I'm always training. I've been practicing Tai Chi for 13 years now. I lived in a Japanese monastery for a whole year and did Zen Buddhism there, and different forms of Japanese aesthetics like calligraphy and flower arrangement and sword fighting. So that's something, that's also something I did with SUSE for the Biodiversities project. We did like deep listening exercises. I come to that later. But nature writing is also a dance between language and narrative, what language to use, which narratives to use. It's somewhere between macro and granular, the big picture and the very small picture. It's stretching from deep time, the beginning of the universe, to this very instant, you know, what is happening just now, as in like maybe haiku poetry. We just describe one moment. It's that dichotomy between nature and culture. I think in nature writing, we don't see it as two things, we see it as one. It's between the political and the private, and history and lore. These are a couple of the books I wrote, and especially the Sound Atlas. That was the last one I did with a Canadian nature writer, Isaac Ewan, where we try to describe the words through sounds, and which is very hard to do, just finding, you know, trying to explain sounds through a narrative. And that book has writing this book has profoundly changed my way of looking at the world, because I really have become a listener. And so I brought to you two examples. This is the nightingales in Victoria Park. Can you hear? So that's just a park in Berlin at 1 a.m. I was coming home from a birthday party. And Berlin is the nightingale capital of the world. For some reason, we have more nightingales than any other city. And a friend of mine, David Rothenberg, he's a musician. He sometimes goes out at night and plays his instruments with the nightingales and gets responses. And we know now that the nightingales change their song to the noise around them, because of course the reason why birds sing is to make themselves heard. And if the noise around them has taken on certain levels and certain rhythms, they have to change their song to be heard amongst them. And then one that was, oops, and this one here, the sparrows, that I just recorded on my way here. It was 5 a.m. in the morning in a station in Berlin. It was just enormous, the chatter of the birds there. So because here in this talk, it's about practices. So my first practice to discover nature and biodiversity in an urban landscape is always flaneuring, is always walking, because that puts me most in contact with the world around me. I explore by foot, you know, I have friends with whom I just do like 1 hour, 2 hour hikes through the city and just follow and the things you can sense just by walking is like the geopsychology of a place. It's like, you know, a place is always made up of different layers, historic layers, social layers. That's something you can really feel through smells, through sounds, but also through sensing. you know, buildings capture warmth more, so you can walk through valleys that are really hot within a city. You can come to open fields where there's a fresh breeze. If you walk along the river, it can sometimes be even cold. It can be really shadowy. So it's just like, just open up your senses, not the usual, like, oh, what kind of, I'm trying to get away from, oh, what kind of architecture is here, but really more, what are the natural senses within the city? And then when it comes to writing, wait, I have to move my, yeah, oops, because I can't actually, yeah, well, tries with as much grace, intelligence, and imagination we can muster. We try to describe and reproduce. So I can't see my cursor to move us away. No. So maybe just read it for yourselves. I can't read it aloud. Then feel the density of things around you, listen to the stones, you become a way shower, and then always remember there's nothing new in eternity, but what is new is your alchemical encounter with it. It's like me in a place, that is what makes it new, you know, and everything that I carry with me, that I connect with the place I'm at, that makes it so very special. And then being able to retell it to someone else. And then, yeah, to listen to your environment, to your surroundings, with your ears, with your eyes, with your hands, your tongue, and even with your dreams. I really do encourage everyone to pay attention to the dreams. And I do even more encourage everyone to do daydreaming, to just take little breaks during the day and just let your thoughts roll on. Yeah, I wish I could read this, and because this is also something I really wish that was more openly practiced, is tenderness towards the world. Olga Tokarczuk, she won the Nobel Prize in 2018, and this was in her opening speech, which it's impossible for me to read now, but just take 20 seconds. Just being kind to the world around you, you know, just don't see it. It's in urban contexts are always very stressful. That just is because there's many people, many other entities there, but just be tender. Yeah, this is a photo. This is the entrance to a German highway, but in the city, a city highway. And you can see even there is nature. I mean, it looks, you know, just different parts and pieces, but it is habitat. We see ecology, we see biodiversity. And so here I just wrote down for you an explanation what makes the networks of life even in a city. It is the biodiversity, the variety of all living things, the habitat, the natural home of these entities, and is the ecology, the relationships between everyone in that space. Yeah, and this is a fantastic book by a Texan writer. He's actually a lawyer. Lawyers are very good writers because they're very good with words. And he's asking, what is the natural history of an urban space? And so this is something I'm really only waking up to lately, is that Berlin is a fantastic space for natural history. Just to give an example, outside Berlin, here I don't know if you know that story, it's become quite common ground now, but the Colosseum in Rome, Richard Deacon, he was a hobby botanist in the 1880s from England. He went to the Colosseum and he found all these like plants from Africa, and he was wondering why are they here in the Colosseum, and they did research and they found that they must have come on the fur of the beasts that the gladiators fought against. And you know, in the 1800s, people would even pay money to go into the Colosseum and harvest some of the plants there because they were so exotic. So the entire Colosseum, a human-made structure, was actually a natural botanic garden. And in the same sense, Berlin is incredible. Like we have, you know, because Berlin was completely destroyed. It was a city of rubble and dust after the war. And in this rubble and dust, so many new plants grew. And for example, there's this kind of grass that came with the panya. Panya are the wheat wagons carried from horses from Ukraine with just wheat, and they carried like seeds from the steppes, from grasses from the steppes, and they immediately found food in this post-war Berlin, and we now have all this grass there from really far east. Or you see this tree, it's growing everywhere in Berlin now, the Ailanthus altissima, it's called the tree of heaven or God tree. And like in German cities, we never had success growing it, but in a city where it was just, you know, stones everywhere, and then them heating up in the summer, and then the warm winds going over it, the seeds would start sprouting. And now we have these trees everywhere. They actually, I mean, they're actually kind of becoming a nuisance now because they do so well. When they do well, they send out toxins into the earth to keep other plants away. So this just is an example how interesting the plants in your own home place, in your own town become if you just do a little bit of research. And this only was possible because the university in Berlin after the war, they couldn't really go out of Berlin because it was like this island city and had to stay in. And so they thought, okay, usually botanists go to remote islands. Well, we just stay in Berlin and look what kind of plants grow here. And they just found these fantastic stories. Yeah, one thing I like to do in my practice is to stop and to name things. Like if I know the name, it's good because then I can, you know, file it in my brain and I know what it is. But then often it's also nice to forget about the name and just look at what I'm seeing just as what I'm seeing. I'll go this. So the act of naming is an act of imagination. This is also an exercise I often do with students is I let them go into urban spaces and then find new names for little islands of life that they find within the city, you know, just like a microcosm, and just find a name and then describe it as such. I'll skip this as well. Then it's, of course, the seasons in the city. The city looks different in winter and summer. And these two pictures, they're only 1 month away, you know, taken in 1 month's difference. And you can see like the house in the back on the left-hand picture is completely overgrown with ivy. On the right hand, there's hardly anything, you know. So that's just interesting also to see the change, and it's a way to connect to the greater movements of nature. And also, I mean, this is the backyard of my house. So there's a fox living there. There's an owl living here, and this is in Berlin Mitte, center of Berlin, right? So, so thinking involves not only the flow of thoughts, but their arrest as well. But Walter Benjamin, he was like the king of Flanders. It's like what I just mentioned, just as important as it is to gather information, it's also to take your time to let it sink in and see what it does with you. This is like also look at, you know, things like velocity, different speeds in the city. This is on the left-hand side, you see the tracks of the train, and there was a little feather really floating down. You know, just play with whatever impacts you have. Explore the habitats at unusual hours of the day. Go out at different times of the day. This is the Tempelhof field at, again, 5 o'clock in the morning. I mean, the city is still, it's beautiful beyond description, you know, what happens then. And it's a very, very different place than during the day. Then it's about paying attention to the more than human world. You know, I was once there was like, I had to write a magazine for a housing complex, and my colleagues and we were like, well, why don't we just write a whole page on who is supposed to live here in the future? And we wrote down every single bug, every spider, every bird. that would also live in this house next to the humans, and one page wasn't enough, you know, moth and just name it, and you know, even you know, yeah, and then each entity comes with a different presence, I would say, you know. The heron, still and observant, the canary bird that must have escaped. You know, there's stories attached to every single creature in the city. You wonder, how did the canary bird get there? Of course, it has to move very fast to fly away and not be eaten. The heron comes here every day. This is the place of the heron, and he just watches the water. So everyone has a story. These are the ravens, you know, they take at certain times of the day, they rule the city, you know. Yeah, and then it's one of the challenges in nature writing that I really have not seen anyone do in a sense that is satisfiable, is the multi-species narrative. How do you write in the fourth person? How do you write from the perspective of the other entity? That is really, how do you show the world through eyes and senses of another species, you know? And then there's also, next to us humans and the modern human world, I always think the modern human world also includes spirits, people who lived in this place before, people who have died in this place. Yeah, this was actually Christmas morning on the graveyard, and I was at 8 a.m. on Christmas morning. I was so surprised to see all these deer appear there. And I'm very fond of this book by Tommy Orange. He's an American Indian, but he lives in LA, and he wrote about his experiences of being an American Indian, a native Indian, a native indigenous, what it means for him to grow up in a city where he does not have his lands and connections that his tradition gives, but what it does. And he says, like, well, despite everything, I am an urban Indian and I belong to the city, and the cities belong to earth. And I always try to remember it, because what is my, you know, what is my history? I mean, I come, you know, I've been living in Berlin now since 20 something years, but it is my habitat. It's my human habitat, you know. And so this is a writing prompt for you, maybe if you feel like later, if you enjoy it, maybe just think of what supernatural being would accompany you in your walk through the city. You know, what would that supernatural being look like? What guidance would it grace you? It's sometimes just fun to play with these thoughts. And yeah, and habitat does not have to be in the big wide prairie or the pastoral landscape. When nature and culture become one, sorry, I can't read it now. What does this change about the way you look at your habitat, you know? So yeah, so this is some of my guidance. I look forward to your questions later. But now I look forward to hearing more from Iacopo. Thanks.
Well, thanks a lot, Michaela. That was a lot already of stimuli, I would say, you know. And yeah, I noted down also some of the feelings I had, not only questions, while I was you were somehow challenging us, no, with your prompts, and we'll soon get there, okay? But I hope also this presentation might give some, yeah, I would say inspirations to Iacopo for his own. Maybe before we pass the baton to him, I see. I thought you were enjoying this. While we pass the baton to Iacopo, maybe I would ask to my colleague Martina, curator of Adimora in Londra, Italy, to very briefly present also what we are doing there with Future DiverCities.
Thank you, Dario. Hello, everyone. It's so nice to be here. And ciao, Iacopo. It's good to see you. And hello, all the other amazing speakers. So thank you for this very interesting panel we're having. So just a few words on Dimora. Dimora is an artistic residency. And let's say, differently from our former partners, so Susa and Anna, we don't actually deal with the place, but former place, a physical place, but we have a huge, amazing municipality surrounded by nature, forests, and so on. So it's a bit overwhelming, but it's also what makes us a little bit unique as well. So when we invite artists to work with us, they usually work throughout summertime for 2 or 3 months, and they have a studio, they have a home, they have, let's say, us working as fixers, but also supporting them in all their needs. They work also on this theme, especially so on how can we manage to talk about the natural part, the urban part, because there's still roads and people living there, and nature, and human and non-human beings walking around and let's say interacting with each other. We are also trying to reflect and have the artists work on how can we, let's say, refresh and rethink the cultural identities of this teeny tiny municipality, which is placed in the Apennine Mountains in Italy, just, let's say, 1 hour drive from Florence. And I don't want to steal too much time from Iacopo, but Iacopo actually was one of the pioneers, because he was one of the first artists who came here in 2023. And Iacopo actually had, let's say, a Future DiverCities scholarship. So we asked him to gather as much as he could from our knowledge sharing approach and platforms and partners, and to, let's say, make it its own, and throughout his practice to manage to have us come together. And we actually did in a wonderful performance with the full moon on a hill, let's talking with each other, and well, not really talking, but making sounds with each other. But I won't go any further. I don't want to spoil everything. So thank you, Dario, and thank you, Iacopo. Great to see you, and curious to listen to what you have to tell us.
Thank you, Martina, for the wonderful introduction. Please, Iacopo, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Martina. Nice to see you. And let me see if I can share this thing, which is the most difficult part. Yeah, I just wanted to mention before sharing maybe one thing that Michaela was mentioning, like when she was talking about describing the future inhabitants of a certain place. It reminded me of Jimmy Durham, which is a great artist who actually was living in Berlin and unfortunately passed away a couple of years ago. And I was very lucky to be his student. And I remember once visiting him in his house, and which was full of plants and full of beautiful things that he kept picking up from everywhere in the world, materials really that came to life in his studio. And he was saying something like, oh yeah, there's that spider there, but I don't want to chase him away because he's doing his own thing, and then he will attract some flies, and then the flies will attract some other animal, and then, I mean, who am I to chase them away? This is not just my place. This is just not my house, but it's like everyone's welcome, really, like any species, anything. Like we can find a way to stay together. So yeah, I would like to stay with you guys the whole day because there's so many things to say, really. But let me see if I can share this and how do you do? Desktop, share. Let's see, allow. Is it working?
It is. Try just to put it in presentation mode.
Nice. Okay.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's, I mean, this is me. I'm a visual artist. I work in mostly in relational art. So I work with people. I try to have people do things together, and I consider myself some kind of connector. Like I try to be a catalyst for situations and a catalyst for different ways of communicating to happen. And yeah, another thing that I also resonate a lot with is this flaneur attitude that Michaela was talking about, because I think this is the way to make open-end research. So something that is not finalized to production, something that is not finalized to a result, but just to discovery and connection and stay in together. So yeah, I was thinking for this presentation to just share a couple of situations that I was involved with, and that kind of bring out themes about how to relate with each other at a human level, but also at a natural level, like teaming up with other beings, with other creatures, with other substances as well. So I'm starting out with Thousand Plateau, which was part of my also another laboratory that I had as a student at my university. I studied art, and in my class with artist Cesare Pietro Justi, who is another great artist that I have the privilege to have worked with and be friends with, we were talking about the concept of rhizome, which has been very seminal. This was like almost 20 years ago, but is still so relevant in my research, because it's a way of thinking about doing things and making things that is not linear, and it takes into account everything, like the environment that you work in, the people that you have around, and it's a mindset that makes you think that you don't need the ideal situation, but you can work a lot with what you have at hand, and then things can develop so freely, and maybe things get a lot better. Yeah. So there's this quote from that book that really inspired my work since then and up to now. Drunkenness as a triumphant eruption of the plant in us. So when we drink something like wine or any other alcoholic beverage, which is so common, we do it without thinking, we do it as a habit, and it can be deadly. It's one of the biggest causes of death in the Western world. But it's like, if we do it in a different way, like it can be an alliance. Like we can really listen to the plant that works within us, and we can collaborate with that. So this is what Deleuze says and Guattari say about that. Like, always follow the rhythm by rupture, lengthen, prolong, and relay the line of flight. Make it vary until you have produced the most abstract and tortuous of lines of n dimensions and broken directions. Conjugate deterritorialized flows. So this is a call for nonsense, if you want. Oh wait, it's a call for nonsense. It's a call for complexity. It's a call to not being afraid of taking like paths that you don't know where they lead. Just take them, and then something will happen. So this is what stems from that reading and that laboratory. It's a series of performances that I initiated in very different places, in like bars, museums, universities, auditoriums, whatever, public programs around Europe. So it's, yeah, as it says, it's a performative didactics event in which a group of people engages in a collective philosophical discussion on a given theme. So we choose a theme and we discuss it while drinking wine. And we try to stay focused all together. All the people that you see in this picture, they studied like 15, 20 pages of notes that I had put together for the occasion about a certain theme. And then we discuss it together while drinking, but trying to stay focused on the topic. So exhilarating things happen. This is me a while ago, like trying to get people drunk, very successfully. And you see that the audience was quite big. So things really happen in this situation in which really like there's different connections that are enabled in the brain between people, and really we kind of become different neurons of a same organism, and then like everybody falls to the floor or falls asleep, and the duration of it doesn't matter. Like it can last longer or shorter depending on how much wine people can take. But the outcomes are really usually interesting, and in the end, it's not the theme that matters, but it's the bonding, and it's the fact that we really connect our minds together, and it doesn't matter if we all forget what it was about the morning after, because the experience itself stays. Here's another quote from A Thousand Plateaux. Follow the plants. You start by delimiting a first line consisting of circles of convergence around successive singularities. So we start from singularities and then we expand. Then you see whether inside that line new circles of convergence establish themselves with new points located outside the limits and in other directions. So limitless directions. Right. Form a rhizome. Increase your territory by deterritorialization. So just it doesn't matter how everything was organized before your eruption. Everything gets reorganized. Extend the line of flight to the point where it becomes an abstract machine covering the entire plane of consistency. So I underlined an abstract machine because I really think like when we talk about things like urban biodiversity, how to connect with other beings, how to collaborate among humans and non-human entities. Yeah, like my effort when I make some performance or event or situation, when I organize something, I try to care about both planes, like the material plane, which involves the visual, the senses, the physicality of people, but also the abstract, so the mind, but also what goes beyond the mind, the spirit world as well. Go first to your old plant and watch carefully the watercourse made by the rain. By now the rain must have carried the seeds far away. Watch the crevices made by the runoff, and from then determine the direction of the flow. Then find the plant that is growing at the farthest point from your plant. All the devil's weed plants that are growing in between are yours. All the devil's weed plants that are growing in between are yours. Like, everyone is everyone else's. Later, you can extend the size of your territory by following the watercourse from each point along the way. And then Deleuze and Guattari talk about this other thing, which is very important and leads me to the next thing that was part of the collaboration with Future DiverCities, which is music and sound. Music has always sent out lines of flight, like so many transformational multiplicities, even overturning the very codes that structure or arborify it. That is why musical form, right down to its ruptures and proliferations, is comparable to a weed, a rhizome. So I would like to talk about sound more than music, because music has this structure, and I think Deleuze and Guattari were signifying that it doesn't matter if the structure stays there. The structure can also dissolve, but sound is still there, and sound transforms and transports information and makes connections. Really, that kind of fine, thin connections that really work through cultures, for example, in the case of human beings. But it's also a very important way of communicating through the entire biosphere. So I used sound in this work, Sinfonia numero 1 per voci e foresta, Symphony number 1 for voices and forest, which is the work that I did in Londa that Martina was referring to earlier on. What I did was an exploration of the forest around the town for 24 hours straight. So I left the town in the afternoon, something like that, with a small backpack, a recorder, a flute, a few pieces of paper, and a carbon stick. And I went exploring the forests. I walked through the day and through the night, and I slept also a little bit. And I used the flute in a field full of crickets. It was summertime, so there were a lot of crickets. I heard the voice of the night birds. I heard the voice of the early morning birds and so on. And I made some frottage just to get to know the trees better, like the different species of trees that were there. And yeah, these are some pictures that I took in the process. So it was a way to commune with the whole environment around the town in order to bring it back to the people who live in the town and share it back together. Some of them knew it very well. Some of them not very often go on the trails that are actually so near. And I asked them to join me in something that was a kind of celebration. Like it was a full moon afternoon. The sun was going down in the west, and the moon was going up in the east. And we were at the top of a pass between two valleys. And we gathered. There were like 40 people, something like that, from the town. Somebody knew each other, somebody didn't. And I kind of asked them, without using words, so without using codified language, to follow me as an orchestra director. These are the frottage, by the way. Yeah, this is what I did at the end of these 24 hours. I came out of the forest and kind of directed this choir. None of us were musicians. I'm not a musician. These people, like, except with some exception, they were not used to sing, but I asked them to use their voice, like taking inspiration from the sounds that animals do, from the sounds that the wind does, and we made a symphony together. Like, it was all improvised. And the only rule that I asked them to follow was just listen to each other and try to go accordingly, and then have fun. It was a very cathartic moment. It was a moment of communion and of sharing of information, even though language was not used. But the sharing was very strong. This leads me to another kind of sharing, I just came back from this retreat, actually. It's been very exciting. It's been like it's a place in the south of Italy, which is called Fondazione La Colemon. This thing that you see here in the image is a house hidden by these trees. It's an old house that has been abandoned for 30 years, and then in 2015, 5 artists bought it. They put some solar panels. They put they dig up a well. Well, they reactivated an existing well, so there's autonomous electricity and water. And it's a very basic house, but very beautiful, very magical. There's a walled garden that is 2 hectares with some trees that are being born, other trees that are dying, free weeds that just grow. Yeah, this is the house, and it's really a magical place. They made a foundation. This is the website. If you want to go, I invite you to check it out. Every summertime, there's a whole series of workshops that are basically open-ended. There's no result that needs to be produced. It's very cheap. You just go there. If you subscribe, you just go there and pay 10 euros for the costs, the living costs, but that's it. And it creates so many communities. So you see, like inside, there's just a few furniture elements that are recycled from old places. And then there's this field where you can basically make art and be lazy happily. This is actually one of the drunken lessons that we made there, analyzing Euripides' text, Bacche, about the rites of Dionysus. And it was very special. There were very special moments. But I wanted to talk about this thing that I just came back from. Like these photos that you see now and the next ones are from 1 week ago. So it's really very fresh. So I initiated this project with a friend of mine who's an architect and landscape architect and photographer. He lives in Parigi. He's called Roberto Dell'Orco. And Roberto called me once many years ago and told me, "Hey, I heard about your experiments with wine and people. I would like to do the same, but with magic mushrooms." And I said, "Wow, yeah, okay, let's do it." It took a while to organize, but Cesare Pietro Giusti, who is the one of the artists who bought this place, which is in Lecce, in Puglia, in the south of Italy, by the way. He said, "Okay, yeah, let's do it at the foundation." So we slowly gathered people and we created a kind of temporary community. And now this was the 3rd year that we are doing this. And it's basically a retreat, let's say, a self-organized retreat. There's no things like shamans or people who know more than others. Like, of course, some people are more experienced than others. But basically, what happens is that for 1 week, there's a temporary family that is created, a temporary family of roughly 12 people that share spaces together in simplicity, in a place which is natural but also urban, because this is just 5 minutes from the city. It's not lost in the desert or in the forest. It's just 5 minutes from the city. But it's a kind of contemporary monastery, contemporary temporary monastery, if you will. And what we did is we made a program for the whole week, which was going to the seaside, making pizza together in the oven of the house, try to learn one song and make a choir and sing it all together, make musical improvisation without being musicians, and all in all, bond together to prepare for a psychedelic experience, which was made in the full moon night at the center of the week. And then after the experience, we did integration. We talked about a lot of deep things. And we basically celebrated the collaboration between us and the fungi and the whole environment that is present in this place. There's a lot of things, for example, for foraging that we ate. There's arugula. There's a lot of asparagus. There's a lot of flowers that can be eaten. There's a lot of fruits. So we ate the very same things that we were speaking with, sort of, when performing the experience. So these are a few photographs. You see, it's an amazing place for biodiversity. Also, there's a lot of bees because there's a lot of flowers. These weeds just get cut once or twice a year, and then they're free to grow. So it's a very wild garden. A lot of beings are having the time of their lives on these flowers. This season in particular is so beautiful. Yeah, this was a moment of karaoke, also very, very much a team building activity. But as you can see, in a rather different situation or environment. So yeah, this is our program. No program, no program, no program, yes program. So one thing that I would like to point out, for example, is we didn't need, like usually when you do these things, you have to have a blackboard where you point out who's doing the dishes, who's gonna cook, who's gonna clean up. We were 12 people. Not everybody knew each other. And we didn't need to organize. Like everybody self-organized in a very harmonic way. Everybody did their share, and everybody was happy. And we had moments of reading together. This is on top of the roof of the house where you could see everything around. And then this is a photograph that I took at the end of the week. One of us made this blanket, this huge blanket that covers exactly that space, and we basically wrote and painted on this blanket everything that happened during the experience. So yeah, I don't know how much time I still have. Probably I went too far. So just to conclude, I wanted to quote this nice guy, Terence McKenna. What we call reality is, in fact, nothing more than a culturally sanctioned and linguistically reinforced hallucination. So this is the reason why I'm really interested in working with language and in disrupting language in order to connect with other beings, with other human beings, as well as with other natural beings. Because language is something that can really crystallize ways of being, ways of living, and the way we think about the environment, the way we think about our relationship with the other is really shaped by how we talk about and with the other. And it's an hallucination. Why is it so? Because it can be changed. It's just something, it's a collective hallucination in a way that we have agreed upon a certain view of the world. But now my thought is that the world is changing so fast, all the paradigms are changing so fast that it's really our chance to enact and enable change through the way we speak and the way we interact with other beings. So the retreat that I just came back from was not so much about eating mushroom and just having fun. It was really about learning new ways of living together, even though for a limited time, even though in a privileged space. But it was about learning harmony and harmonious being together and trying to then bring it back to what is this shared reality that we live in and that we all, I guess, want to desperately shift for the better, for the good of the whole biosphere. So yeah, I would leave
Thank
it
you.
here.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you. I didn't want to interrupt you because I saw that the flow was already going toward an end. That was so interesting, Jacopo. Thanks for sharing also this last very fresh experience with us, and not only the one in Future Diversities. I have many questions for all of you, but maybe before asking some of them, I would love to ask our audience and also you too if you have questions for each other or just things that maybe resounded to you and that you want to share. Yeah. Yeah, please, Michaela, go. Thanks.
Yeah. So thanks, Jacopo. How do I say your name?
Iacopo.
Jacob. Yeah. Yeah, super fascinating. Yeah, I was wondering, yeah, you quoted Terence McKenna and how culture is something we have agreed upon, and then by taking mushrooms or getting drunk, you leave those pathways and see where else it goes. And I think that's really super interesting because, if you look at like slime molds, we know now that they can replicate like the network of the Tokyo subway system better and faster than an engineer would, because they were so when you compare it to rhizomes, like really be aware that they are finding the most direct way. And when you are taking on these drug installed planes of being, your thoughts will have a way, and that's super interesting. And I was just curious on how you record it, because while you're in that state, it's kind of it's hard to keep track, even though you do writing, but often it's like afterwards to follow it up. So I was wondering how you record it so you can afterwards retrace it.
So integration is a very important part of it. It's never easy to record and to document everything. But our project is actually called Indicibile, which means unspeakable because of that. Because you cannot really if you really abandon this struggle about trying to report everything specifically, exactly, then other ways of dealing with it open up. So what we are doing is we're doing this thing like once a year, and during the rest of the year we try to organize situations in which maybe there's a talk, maybe there's a music gathering, and then some of that experience we talk a little bit about that experience, and so we share it with other people who couldn't participate or who would never participate because they're afraid or whatever. And so that's a way of disseminating. And then it's really about this kind of open-ended research. We're not, there will be a publication coming out about the first gathering, which has become a narration with multiple voices. Basically, everyone intertwined their voice, recounting from different perspective what happened that specific night, together with images and photographs and drawings. but besides that is not the point. That's a tool, but it's not the goal. It's just a tool to disseminate. But then the real dissemination, I think, is really how you act in the world, how every one of us, after this experience, act in the world, bringing with themselves that knowledge, that information that came to us. So sometimes it's just a little shift in how you act, in the things that you decide to undertake, in the choices that you make later. Yeah.
Oh, it's super interesting because you gather this sense of existence while you're in that altered state, but it's interesting that you have this altered state in a group, but then when the group separates and the altered state, fades out, you still have the knowledge. Each individual still has the knowledge. That's super interesting.
Yeah, and it's like everyone is left with a bit of that. So when you reconnect later, you kind of put it together again and it flowers again. Yeah.
Nice.
Thank you.
I just wanted to
Yes.
actually answer your prompt. I took some notes because you asked which supernatural being I would be, and I can tell you that during this experience, I kind of became a butterfly. So, like, really, it was a way of collecting beautiful things around, jumping from one thing to another. So, yeah, the
I don't
butterfly.
know if you're interested in it, but in the latest issue of the New Yorker, the magazine, the New Yorker, there's a really fantastic article by Michael Pollan
Oh,
about an experiment where they were giving people from like priests and other religious leaders mushrooms to eat, and then did the testing, what that did to their spiritual realm. And that was, I don't know, it's super interesting. Maybe if you,
yeah, I'll take a look.
yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you. Other questions, curiosities? Otherwise, maybe I have also one question for Jakov. Okay, so we started from the very material, let's say, and still that material, I think it's relevant because one point that somehow I saw that connect also your practice with the one of Michaela and maybe also of Iacopo is you work a lot on, sorry, maybe it's not the right term, but I would call it urban furniture, isn't it? Okay, so it's really solutions, spatial solutions that maybe can be done together or yourself, okay, and that change the physical and also environmental space in some specific places, no? So my point is having a bench or having this kind of structure also changes the perspective that people will have on a place, no? Because they will use the space differently. So my question to you, and this connects, I think, a lot with the kind of look that also Michaela asked us to have on the surrounding environment, is how do you choose the place where this happens? Okay, so it's not that much about the kind of furniture you produce, but how you do decide the place where this furniture goes, and are there connections also to the way you want people, you want to stimulate, let's say, people to live together differently, the environment and also the biodiversity, let's say, in a place. Yeah, so that's my question to you, Jakov.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Yeah, I mean, I like this. I like to think first of what a place is in a way. Like I cycle a lot in the forest, in the mountain behind my city, and I have a place that I sit on. I sit on a stump off the trail. This is my place. I come, I eat my sandwich, I look at the city from a very far, it's subjectively very important. I have no idea to make. I have no wish to make a bench there. This is when it's there. On the other hand, this idea of places and non-places. Alain de Botton living in Heathrow Airport for a week and writing a book about what makes a place. Like these transitional areas, like airports and bus stops and so on. They don't have. How do you say? Sorry for the noise. They don't have maybe a chance for a strong subjective memory to form. And when I think about it, also, if I was to choose where to apply a design that I made, it would be in a frequent place, not necessarily transitional, but one that has multiple layers of social historical significance in a way. I do not. For example, I don't really wish to intervene into, as much as I respect, let's say, land art. I don't want to intervene in this type of environments which are less culturally human, like impacted from the point of doing furniture. I would keep it for this mix of urban environments. If that's an answer.
It is indeed. Okay, thank you. Thanks a lot. And maybe another point I just wanted to share, with Michaela. Okay, is also that funny enough, what I noticed this morning, first thing I noticed when walking out of home was an ailanthus. Okay, so funnily you then presented it later as an example. And no, but because somehow the interesting part of it is the pervasiveness it has in a city, how fast it is. And so it's one of those plants you can really notice changing from day to day in front of you. And somehow it's one of the plants I feel are more aligned also with human timing, because let's say in a couple of days, our life may change so much, okay, or maybe not that much, but let's say we see change in one day of one person life, and it's not always the same, for example, for other kind of living beings. No, Ailanthus is very powerful on that, because you perceive really how it's growing in front of you. And so then it was an example, so I was happy that somehow I reconnected with that. And also in general, I was very pleased also to see the connection between your presentation and the one on Iacopo, specifically not that much only on nature, but on words. Okay, so what do words mean? How do they limit us? How can we try to have a fourth person? You were saying that was so beautiful, for example, as a concept. No, so of course, the point of having a fourth person or having a fourth dimension, okay, and our attempts to reach that are somehow something that we may, every one of us, I think, not in this virtual room, but I mean, as humankind may have in common, no? So it's really this struggle to go beyond what usually we would name in a way or perceive in a way. So I see a big parallel on what you presented, okay, and I was happy about that, because maybe this was not in the initial intentions of the talk. So I saw also how your intervention connected. So this is not really a question, sorry about that, but it was just more tracing some lines between your intervention and seeing how they somehow be perceived as something really similar, but just look from other points of view. No, so thank you, thanks a lot for this. I don't know if you want to add something on this, please.
But I think I just wanted to add that nature writing is often about giving voice to those who we cannot hear. And I think that also applies to, future DiverCities. It applies to a working democracy where we do have to listen also to the voices of those who are underrepresented, but it also, means the voices in the natural world of the modern human world. And then like Jakov creating places and spaces where we can listen and talk to each other. And Jacopo, maybe even having found a format where we can talk in the fourth person, where everyone takes on a different language that is completely, you know, ununderstandable for anyone watching, but while you're at it, it makes total sense, and you have found it because it's all about the connections, right? So I think that was beautiful.
But thank you. Of course, let's say we now all know each other, and I hope this was also a good way to really know each other, maybe have further interactions, let's say, within the project and even later, okay? Just for everyone that is not here at the moment, just and maybe you're watching this video on YouTube some days from now, just be aware that we will have another talk, and of course also Iacopo, Michaela, Jakov, and everyone is invited just to participate next June. This will be on collective narratives and identities as a theme. So I'm very happy that we closed this way, you see, because we really go in continuity, but somehow maybe more from the elements really also of social interaction, social justice, social recognition. Okay, still, I think it really resound also with some of the points you raised today. And so I really thanks again one more time you all for being here today. And I hope this was also a fruitful, useful moment for all of you. And thank you again. I wish you all a nice day.